Star Wars. It is a legacy. And for those of us who grew up with Star Wars, it's been a part of our lives and has shaped our lives to some degree uh, since we were children. And this is a world, an intellectual property that has spawned all sorts of different entertainment options, whether it's novels, comic books, video games, TV shows, documentaries, and of course now we have all of these new offerings coming out under the Disney tentpole. But today I want to talk about Star Wars: The Old Republic. This is a game that came out in 2011. I played it very hardcore when it first came out, and over the years I have continually been drawn back to it. Usually once every 12 to 18 months I'll come back and dive in for about 3 months. I almost always, well, I guess I should say I have always, until this most recent experiment, I have always paid a monthly subscription when I come back. I always pick up a 3-month block. The exception is this time because I wanted to approach the game on Twitch for the live streams from a different angle. I wanted to approach it from the angle of, hey, here's this game. Um, let's see what the free-to-play looks like and do it. So for the purposes of the explanation for this video and what I'm live playing over on Twitch in the mornings, we're looking at the free-to-play version. This game most recently became available on Steam, so they're continuing to expand the ways that people can get into the game, which I think is great. It is an exceptionally good game. It has changed a lot since it first came out, obviously. When it first launched, it was a group-based MMORPG, and definitely relied upon groups like Flashpoints. You couldn't do Flashpoints without a group, and these days you can, because they give you a robot companion who has like ultimate damage and ultimate heals, and you can just you can just face mash the keyboard and get your way through the flashpoints. But in the original version of the game, you had to do flashpoints with groups, and the conversation options gave you social points. So it was a really unique way at the time for these group members to participate in the conversation wheels as a group and influence the decision of the party. It was one of the, I think, the first, if not one of the first, it was the first game to do that in an MMORPG setting. Now, of course, we see games like Red Dead Redemption Online has those multiplayer options, for conversation wheels. But this was the game that did it first, and over the years, it has become a single-player game with multiplayer components. So it is quite a bit different today. But I just want to talk about: is the game worth it? Is it worth diving into? Is it worth paying for? Which I think the answer to that is yes. Obviously, you can play the game for free, which is what I'm doing right now. And if you're only interested in playing the game and having a fun time and getting the storyline out of a single character, you totally can. But if you're interested in the cosmetics and fleshing out a character completely and the roleplay aspect, so on and so forth, then it's totally worth spending the money for a monthly subscription, because you get the cartel points, which allow you to do more things and customize your character. You can obviously pay for cartel points outside of a subscription, but that's a different option if you want to go that way. But for now, let's dive in to the game. So for the most part, it's kind of the same as it's always been in terms of getting in and creating your character. You choose between the Republic or the Sith Empire, and once you've chosen your alignment or your allegiance, you get in here and you can choose your class. Now, whether you're looking at the good guys or the bad guys here, each class is broken into 4 archetypes, and each archetype is broken into 2 subclasses. So like the smuggler, which is what I'm playing for this for the playthrough that I'm doing on Twitch, I went with the gunslinger option, which is purely DPS, but you could also choose the Sawbones option, which is like a healer utility. Beyond that, you can get into the options at the top, where you can look at like what is the story for each one of these archetypes. And there's some pretty good lore in here if you're into the lore, which I am, so I appreciate being able to go through all these things and read up on what all these things are. It really can help make your decision easier, especially if you've never played this game before. But it's really just fluff, but it's a cool background character for um, what is the story of these characters. But it's also you can look at the combat roles and all the information about the characters, what kind of equipment they're going to be using, so on and so forth. And once you get beyond that, you can go into collecting, um, or choosing, I should say, the species that you're going to be playing. And this is where, if you've played the base game, if you're just playing the free-to-play version, you're only going to have a handful of options available to you. But there's a whole bunch of other options that are available if you purchase them with cartel points. And these are all the extra races like Twi'lek and the Chiss and so on and so forth. But to start off, you can not the Twi'leks, excuse me, other options. But basically, starting, you've got a handful of options you can choose from, and a bunch of ones that you can pay to unlock if you want to go that route. Once you've chosen your race, you can choose your male, female. Then you get into the character customization, which is fairly robust. It's always been a robust system, but the one limitation is that you're only going to ever get one voice. There's one voice for your character, and that's the voice. So you don't get any voice options, it's just the one. But beyond that, you can customize your character as much as you see fit, which for some people is a place where you're going to spend a couple of hours working on creating the ultimate character. Especially if you're somebody like me who likes to roleplay and you're going to really be immersing yourself in the world, you want to make sure that your character looks like somebody who you would want to play for a long time. Once you get beyond that, you're going to get straight into the storyline for your character. And this is kind of like, you get the initial text roll across the screen, your classic Star Wars music, and then that rolls into what I would consider to be a typical Star Wars introduction, which is you go straight from the text scroll to a animation sequence, which in the case of my smuggler involves a ship breaking past a blockade because we are going down to the planet to deliver a shipment of blasters to the people of Ord Mantell. Now, from here we get into the gameplay for Star Wars: The Republic. And if there's one thing I will say about this game is that since the beginning, they always put an emphasis on what they called Star Wars combat, like the Star Wars experience. And they took more from the prequels than they did the original trilogy in this sense, because it's always been about going up against kind of overwhelming odds and giving you that hero feeling. Now, the game is definitely a lot easier today than it used to be because you can kind of face roll your way through combat for most of the encounters. And even in the boss encounters, they're not nearly as challenging as they used to be. I can remember the first time I played this game, going through in the Jedi Sentinel, coming up against boss encounters, I would die 2, 3, 4, 5 times every single boss encounter. And nowadays, at least with this most recent playthrough, I haven't fallen once. And when I was playing it last year with my Jedi Guardian, I also didn't have an issue with any of the combat. It's just they've changed the game so much over the years that it is now much easier. I think the only thing that could be considered challenging in any scope of that word would be the raid encounters, which are completely optional and are not part of like the actual base game, and those are things that you're only going to be doing at the end game anyway, so it doesn't really apply to what we're talking about in this video. So for the purposes of like the single player game, going through, you're going to be able to just kind of play this game and enjoy it. I don't think you're ever going to feel challenged, which makes this game great for new players who might not have ever played an MMORPG before, or people like my wife who are just completely new to games in particular. This is one of those games that's really easy to get into because the difficulty is just kind of novice level. Um, the game, in terms of the storyline, this is kind of like the main thing that I'd like to focus on for a good chunk here. It used to be that if you wanted to level up a character, you had to do all the quests. You had to not only do your class quests, but you also had to do the world storyline quests, as well as all of the optional quests, and you would need to throw a few flashpoints in there as well to keep up with the level of the main storyline. Now, playing the free account these days, I had some doubts when I first started playing about whether or not I was going to be able to keep up with the actual level of the main quest lines. And so far, I've been able to stay right on top of it. There's a couple times I've dropped behind by a level, but you're given throughout the course of this game, they will tell you that if you pay for a subscription, that you'll get bonus experience and you get rest experience and all these other things. These are the perks of having a monthly subscription. And having played with the monthly subscription multiple times, including last year, I can say this: if you have the subscription turned on, you will be ahead of the quest levels for the main storyline for the class quests by several levels, especially if you're taking advantage of logging out in a cantina so that you're earning rest XP every time you log off. You will never need to touch any sort of experience potions whatsoever, experience buffs. You just roll straight through and you'll always be ahead of the quest line. Now that I'm playing the free-to-play version, you're given these experience point buffs, or these, I call them potions because that's what they're called in other games, but here they are buffs that you can apply to your character. But you're given these pots basically, and they last anywhere from an hour to a couple hours, so here and there, and they give you an experience boost. And using those with the free-to-play account, I have been able to stay on top of the levels for the main quest lines up until the point where I am right now, which is, as of the recording of this video, my character is level 23, I believe, and we're heading to Tatooine, and that storyline starts at level 24. So I'm right there, within a level of it, and I haven't felt like I'm falling behind. I might fall behind on Tatooine, we'll see, but so far I've been able to stay up to date with the potions. So the nice thing about the way the game is set up now is that you can play it just for the class storylines, which makes it feel very much like, because you're given 4 archetypes for each of the Republic and the Sith, you've basically got 8 single player games at your disposal, because the class storylines don't cross over to each other. So the storylines are completely independent of each other. They have their independent dialogues, narratives, etc. So you won't be repeating anything. Whereas the world quests are there always, and so every character that rolls through can do the world quests and the flashpoints and the dungeons on the planets and so on and so forth. So if you choose to pursue those, you can, but you'll be repeating those quests with every character that you take through the game. But the class quests are unique, so you can get a unique storyline out of each one. Now, the length of the class quests in Star Wars: The Old Republic is slightly different for each one. There are people that will tell you that it only takes 10 hours to get through a class quest, and I don't find that to be the case at all. I think if you take the time to actually go through and really play the character to its depth, you're going to get 40 hours, I think, about 40 hours out of each storyline, which is why I say this makes it like you're playing 8 different single player games, and you're getting that for free if you're playing the free to play game. Like, you don't have to pay anything if you don't want to, which is amazing. I think it's a business model that continues to boggle my mind, but because people like me typically will pay for the subscription, and then people like my brother will constantly, buy more cartel points, and they're able to offset the free-to-play players. But point I want to drive home is that you're going to get, in my opinion, you're going to get around 40 hours of gameplay for each of these class storylines you choose to go through, and you don't have to repeat any of it. So you can play the smuggler all the way through, and if you like the game, you can turn around and play the, trooper all the way through, or the Sith Inquisitor, or the bounty hunter. Each one has its own unique storyline, its own unique companion characters, and they're well worth playing all in their own right. However, the caveat to that is that in my playthroughs of the game, you're really only going to get that originality for the first version of the game, which is the base version, which is the Old Republic. Once you get into the expansions, Rise of the Hutt Cartel, and so on and so forth, the expansions don't offer that same level of replayability, because once you play through an expansion, the expansion is the expansion. So it's a one-shot thing, and whatever character you take through, when you go to take the subsequent character through, you're going to get the exact same storyline. So that's where, for me personally, the game starts to lose some of its appeal in terms of replayability. I have not been compelled to play through the additional content of the game more than one time, which is why I have my main character, who's a Jedi Guardian. That's the character that I'll go back to, once a year or so, and I will play through the most recent expansion and get through that, and then whatever time I have left on my subscription, I will then go through and work on some alts some more and just tinker around for a few months. But I've never been compelled to take an alt through at this point in time. Now, having played this game a lot over the years, I've played the Jedi Knight storyline all the way through. I've played the Jedi, was it the Consular, I think, all the way through. I've played the Bounty Hunter storyline all the way through. I've played a Guardian and a Sentinel, so I've actually done the Jedi Guardian or the Jedi Knight storyline twice. So I've played multiple characters to max, but I still haven't played. I've had a Bounty Hunter. Excuse me, I've had a Smuggler alt, but I've never leveled it past 20 before. I had a Trooper alt that I've never leveled past 20, a Sith Inquisitor alt, so on and so forth. So right now I've been working on this Smuggler storyline and diving in and seeing what I can get out of it in terms of purely a class-based storyline, just following the class-based story and just playing it for free and seeing what I get out of it. There's a lot of other things to this game if you really want to min-max. There's housing, there's raids, there's guilds, there's PvP. I mean, there's all this different stuff that you can get involved in if you want to. But for me, I'm purely playing it from the storyline perspective, and I think that if you're someone who enjoys Star Wars and Star Wars lore, then this is a game that's absolutely worth jumping in and playing, especially considering that you can pick it up for free and play it for 40 hours. And if you think that it's worth investing money into after that point, go for it. I've put hundreds of dollars into this game over the years, and I have no problems about that, because it is a game that in my mind is well worth every penny that I've ever spent, because I've gotten thousands of hours of entertainment out of it. But that's going to be different for every single person out there. So given the fact that it's free to play, you can get it on Steam, you can get it on a lot of different places, I think it's totally worth playing, even in 2020. Obviously it's changed a lot, but if you're someone who loves Star Wars and you like to experience everything about the Star Wars universe, then this is a game that is worth diving into, especially considering the lore is canon, and there's characters from the Knights of the Old Republic game as well as beyond, so I don't want to spoil too much for everybody, but Star Wars: The Old Republic, totally worth it. Check it out. Don't forget, I'm live streaming over on Twitch if you want to watch me as I play through the Smuggler storyline, which has definitely been the most amusing of the narratives that I've seen to date. So hopefully I'll see you over on Twitch as well. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.